Welcome to Context 101. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Tonight, a Supreme Court decision has upended American economic policy and redefined presidential power. The court struck down President Trump's signature tariffs, ending a policy that shaped global trade and sparked fierce debate. These Liberation Day tariffs, introduced in April 2025, were meant to protect American industries but triggered a global trade war and rising prices at home. With a single ruling, the court dismantled this framework, leaving the nation and the world asking, what comes next? For struggling businesses, it could mean relief. For workers, a chance at job recovery. For the White House, a major defeat. The ruling challenges the president's authority to impose such sweeping economic measures, raising questions about the separation of powers. Financial markets surged, foreign governments responded with cautious optimism, and politicians quickly took sides. Supporters of the tariffs call the decision judicial overreach, opponents hail it as a victory for the rule of law. The aftershocks will be felt for years. Tonight, we break down what the court said, why it matters, and what it means for you. The world was watching, and the court has spoken. Stay with us as we unpack this historic moment. To grasp today's ruling, let's revisit the origins of the Liberation Day tariffs. In April 2025, President Trump invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, to impose sweeping tariffs on imports, aiming to shield American industries from foreign competition. The administration argued that tough measures were needed to fix decades of bad trade deals and revive U.S. manufacturing. The tariffs targeted everything from steel to electronics, but the economic fallout was swift. While some domestic producers benefited, many businesses faced soaring costs, and farmers suffered from retaliatory tariffs abroad. The job market stagnated, with only 584,000 jobs added in 2025, a sharp drop from the previous year. Prices for everyday goods climbed, straining household budgets. Despite some rollbacks, the core policy remained, fueling mounting legal challenges. Eventually, Learning Resources Inc., an educational toy company, led the charge, arguing the president had overstepped his authority. Their lawsuit set the stage for a historic Supreme Court showdown. The stakes, the limits of presidential power, and the future of American trade policy. The nation watched as the case moved toward the highest court. The outcome would reshape the economic landscape, and today, that outcome arrived. At the heart of the legal battle was Learning Resources Inc. versus Trump. The company, hit hard by tariffs on Chinese imports, argued that the president's use of IEEPA for broad, long-term tariffs was unconstitutional. Their case wasn't just about business losses. It was about who holds the power to regulate trade. Learning Resources claimed only Congress can set tariffs, and IEEPA was never meant for sweeping economic warfare. The Trump administration countered that unfair trade practices posed a national threat, justifying broad executive action. The Supreme Court was asked, can the president use emergency powers to reshape trade policy? Oral arguments were tense, with justices probing the limits of executive authority and the intent behind IEEPA. The nation waited as the court weighed the balance between security and constitutional checks. The stakes were enormous. The outcome would define the boundaries of presidential power for years. After months of anticipation, the court delivered a decision that will echo through history. The ruling would not only affect tariffs, but the very structure of American government. The legal showdown was over, but the consequences were just beginning. The world took notice. The Supreme Court's decision arrived quietly but carried seismic weight. In a 6-3 majority, the court ruled the president had exceeded his authority under IEEPA by imposing the Liberation Day tariffs. The majority opinion declared that while the president has significant emergency powers, they are not unlimited. The law, the court said, was meant for specific emergencies, not for long-term trade policy. Setting tariffs on this scale is a legislative power, reserved for Congress. The dissent warned the ruling could weaken the presidency in times of economic threat, but the majority insisted it was restoring constitutional balance. A concurring opinion highlighted the founders' intent to keep economic power in Congress's hands. The decision reaffirmed first principles, checks and balances, and the separation of powers. The court's message was clear: no president can unilaterally rewrite trade policy. History was made in a few pages of legal text. The markets reacted instantly to the court's decision. The Dow soared, with manufacturing, transportation, and tech stocks leading the rally. Investors bet that ending the trade war would lower costs and boost growth. The dollar dipped while prices for commodities like steel and aluminum fell. Good news for manufacturers. Economists quickly revised forecasts, predicting a rebound in hiring, especially in sectors hit hardest by the tariffs. The removal of tariffs is expected to revive the job market, which lost 70,000 manufacturing jobs since last April. Still, some industries that benefited from protection now face renewed competition. The transition won't be painless, but the consensus is clear: freer trade brings broader economic benefits. For now, relief and optimism dominate Wall Street. The era of the trade war is over, at least for now. The financial world has spoken. The next challenge: adapting to a new global landscape. The stakes remain high. The political impact of the ruling is profound. The decision strips the president of unilateral tariff authority, forcing future trade policy through Congress. On Capitol Hill, Democrats and some Republicans praised the ruling as a constitutional victory, calling for bipartisan trade reform. Supporters of the president decry the decision as an attack on executive power and American jobs. The White House calls the ruling a mistake, vowing to fight for new trade tools. The decision narrows IEEPA's scope, raising the bar for future presidents seeking to impose economic sanctions. Trade policy will now require more debate, compromise, and legislative action. The balance of power has shifted, perhaps for a generation. Washington faces a new era of collaboration and conflict over America's economic future. The rules of the game have changed. For American workers and families, the ruling brings hope and uncertainty. Manufacturing and logistics workers, hit hard by layoffs, see a chance for jobs to return. A Michigan auto worker told us, "Maybe the plant will reopen. Maybe I'll get my job back." Farmers and port workers echo cautious optimism as foreign markets may reopen. Consumers, who've paid more for goods from sofas to laptops, could soon see prices drop. For many, it's a welcome relief after a year of rising costs. But not everyone is celebrating. Steel and aluminum workers who benefited from tariffs now fear renewed foreign competition. "The president was fighting for us, now we're on our own," said a Pennsylvania steelworker. The end of the trade war brings winners and losers, just as the tariffs did. The nation faces tough choices and trade-offs. The impact will be felt in paychecks, prices, and communities across America. The story is far from over. Experts are weighing in on the ruling's long-term impact. Economists like Mark Zandi predict the end of tariffs will revive hiring and lower costs, especially in manufacturing and agriculture. Legal scholars call the decision a landmark for separation of powers, restoring Congress's constitutional role in trade. Professor Elizabeth Warren notes the court simply reaffirmed the traditional balance between executive and legislative authority. Some analysts warn that without tariffs, certain industries may struggle to compete, and unfair trade practices remain unresolved. Others argue the president now has fewer tools to respond to global threats, potentially weakening U.S. leverage. The debate over presidential power and economic strategy will continue. The ruling is seen as both a necessary correction and a new challenge. America's approach to trade and the presidency has changed. The world is watching how the U.S. adapts. The conversation is just beginning. With the tariffs gone, the U.S. faces a massive economic reset. Businesses must adjust prices and supply chains. The government must unwind years of policy. The Supreme Court didn't ban tariffs. It said only Congress can impose them on this scale. The future of trade policy now lies with lawmakers, demanding debate and compromise. For workers and consumers, there's cautious optimism, more jobs, lower prices, and a more stable economy. But global competition remains fierce, and the path forward is uncertain. The ruling closes one chapter and opens another in American economic history. A new legal precedent has been set, rebalancing power in Washington. The true impact will unfold in jobs, prices, and America's place in the world. This story touches everyone. What does this ruling mean for you? Join the conversation. The world has changed, and the next steps are up to us.